Reciprocity is that mother and infant interaction is reciprocal in that both infant and mother respond to each other's signals and each elicits responses from one another. So the mother is not responsible for just getting response out the baby. They both elicit interaction. Reciprocity begins to occur from 3 months and involves verbal and facial expressions. Alert phases are when babies have these phases where they signal that they're ready for interaction. Mothers pick up on these signals 2/3 of the time. Brazelton et al. Said reciprocity was like a dance because mother and baby respond to one another. Interactional synchrony is when mother and infant reflect both the actions and emotions of each other and do this in a synchronized way, so their actions and emotions will mirror one another. The Meltzoff and Moore study on interactional synchrony was when interactional synchrony was observed in infants as young as 2 weeks. Adults displayed one of 3 facial expressions or actions, and the child's response was filmed and identified. They found an association between the adult's actions and the baby's response. The purpose of international synchrony is that it's important for the development of mother and infant attachment, and there's evidence for this. Isabella et al. Observed 30 mothers and babies and assessed a high degree of interactional synchrony means a better quality of attachment. So the evaluation for the for infant caregiver interactions, which is reciprocity and interactional synchrony, is that they don't tell us what the purpose of these interactions are. So observations don't tell us the purpose of international synchrony or reciprocity, just that they do occur, and that these two sets of behaviours occur at the same time. There's evidence that it does help attachment from Isabella et al., but it doesn't really tell us the exact purpose of these things. One strength, though, of interactional synchrony and reciprocity is that information about it comes from very controlled observations that capture a high level of detail. For example, the Meltzoff and Moore observation was filmed so they could see many angles of the interaction, and also that babies cannot display demand characteristics, and therefore the studies into interactional synchrony and reciprocity have high validity. Another evaluation point is that it's hard to know what's going on when observing infants. We can't know what's happening from the infant's perspective because they're so young, so we can't know whether their imitations are deliberate, unconscious, or we can't know if their behaviours have special meanings or whether they're just doing things without meaning, if it even means anything at all. It's very important that you need to know about parent-infant attachment, as Schaefer and Emerson. They found that the majority of babies attached to the mother first, around 7 months, then other family members. 75% of infants formed an attachment with the father by 18 months, which was measured by the observation of separation anxiety. And we'll look at that study in more depth later. Another study that looks at parent-infant attachment is Grossman's study into the role of the father. It was a longitudinal study looking at both parents' behaviour and the relationship to child's attachment in their teens. He found that the quality of an infant's attachment with their mother related to the quality of their attachments in adolescence, but not the father. However, he found the quality of the father's play with the infant was related to the quality of adolescent attachment, which seems to suggest that fathers have a distinct role in caregiving that is not related to nurturing but related to play and stimulation. There is evidence to suggest that when fathers enter the role of primary caregiver, they adopt behaviours that are more typical of mothers. Tiffany Field observed this when she filmed 4-month babies in face-to-face interactions with primary caregiver mothers, primary caregiver fathers and secondary caregiver fathers, and found that primary caregiver and mothers spent more time imitating, smiling and holding the baby than secondary caregiver fathers, which are important behaviours that build attachment with the infant. This research shows that fathers can be the more nurturing attachment figure, and the key to attachment relationships is the level of responsiveness, not the gender, so fathers can be primary caregivers. The first evaluation point is that findings are inconsistent because they're trying to answer different questions about attachment and the role of certain individuals. So some of the studies are looking at fathers and secondary caregivers. Some are looking at fathers as primary caregivers. The fathers as secondary caregivers ones sees fathers having a distinct role, but the ones that look at farmers, the ones that look at fathers as primary caregivers, says that they don't have a distinct role, that they can take on the maternal role, so they can't ultimately answer the question of what the role of the father actually is. Another evaluation point is that although Grossman found fathers had an important role in children's development, a study by McCallum and Golombok found that children without a father, so in single parent or same-sex families, did not develop differently. So this could be argued that the father's role as secondary caregiver is not specific or differentiated in any way. If fathers can be both primary and secondary caregivers, why aren't fathers primary caregivers more often? This is a question we have to ask when lots of research finds that fathers can be primary caregivers. And this could be down to gender roles or female hormones, so estrogen that encourages nurturing behaviour. So this has to be considered when thinking about the role of the father and attachment figures. A further evaluation point of attachment figures is that this kind of research is very socially sensitive, so suggesting that children that lack mother-infant interactions are disadvantaged could prevent mothers returning to work, or they could be shamed, looked down upon for that, as this would prevent interactional synchrony. So this means that researching the role of the father and the role of the mother, and if they're distinct, is socially sensitive.